The women who were raped by a former Oklahoma City police officer are speaking out. The victims are telling their stories after 29-year-old Daniel Holtzclaw was convicted of multiple rapes. Police say he assaulted 8 women, including a grandmother in her 50s and a 17-year-old. The majority of his victims were African-American women in a low-income neighborhood he patrolled. Holtzclaw faces a total of 263 years in prison. Earlier today, the victims reacted to the verdict.
I was violated in June by a police officer. He stopped me on 50th and Lincoln for no reason whatsoever, pulled me over, and fondled me and did certain things to me. I was out there alone and helpless, didn't know what to do. And in my mind, all I could think that he was going to shoot me. He was going to kill me. He did things to me that I didn't think a police officer would do. He made me perform all of sodomy sex on him. I didn't know what to do. I was so afraid. I was afraid for my life. I kept begging him, "Sir, please don't make me do this. Don't make me do this, sir. Please, you're going to shoot me." He said, "I'm not going to shoot you." I said, "Yeah, you're going to shoot me." The only thing I could see was my life flash before my eyes and the gun in his holster on his right side. And as I tried to look up at his name, I was afraid to, because I said, if I know his name, I know he's going to kill me. So that I didn't do.
CBS Justice reporter Paula Reid is joining us from our D.C. bureau this afternoon. Good afternoon, Paula. How significant is this decision?
Anna, this is incredibly significant. There are so many communities across the country who truly believe that police officers are above the law, even when they commit acts of violence, particularly against minority or low-income communities. So a case like this shows that police officers are, in fact, not above the law. Now, the fact is the overwhelming majority of police officers do their job extremely well. They're brave. They act within the bounds of the law. But because of the advent of iPhones and so many ways to record these incidents, we're seeing a lot more of these cases. Examples of police officers acting inappropriately, in some cases potentially acting illegally. But in those situations, those often fall within the law that gives a lot of deference to police officers. So a case like this, especially an egregious case like this, it's incredibly important to see in conviction to send the message that police officers are not above the law.
Do we have a sense as to how many police officers have actually been convicted of anything even close to this across the country?
Convicted of serial rape like this?
Yes, serial rapes, those kinds of crimes, serial crimes at all, in fact.
Well, one of the difficult things, the Department of Justice and the FBI do not collect a lot of statistics about violence conducted by police officers on the job. They do conduct studies and collect evidence about violence against police officers. But in the wake of all of these protests and all of these incidents of excessive force, there have been calls to collect more of that data. So it simply just doesn't exist.
Are we getting a sense of the reaction of families and victims in this case, especially to statements from the Oklahoma County District Attorney, who said that the outcome of this case shows that they will pursue investigations regardless of whether it's police officers, regardless of race, regardless of the background of the victims? What kind of reaction do you think that that gets from victims and their families? And do you think that this community is convinced by those statements?
Well, they held a couple press conferences right after the verdict. And again, it sends an incredibly powerful message that police officers are not above the law and there are not two justice systems. Now, in this case, he targeted low-income women, vulnerable women, and you see that a lot. Serial predators target vulnerable populations. They expect that those people won't be able to come forward, even if they do, that they won't be believed. So in this case, it took at least one woman coming forward, and then you found all these other cases, all these other stories. So it's an incredibly important message, not just about the police, but about anyone who is a victim of crime, that they can come forward and that the justice system will work for them.
All right, Paula Reid in Washington, thanks very much.